Hello everybody, welcome to the Invention Dev Q&A. So to be fair, we have been busy. As you can probably imagine, there's been so many questions about Invention, kind of feedback, some taking exception to certain things, and we don't want to shirk from that. This Dev Q&A is all about addressing those questions as much as possible. Get your questions to us on hashtag #RSDevQA, and we are going to address as many of them as we can in this hour. I really talk to you about our thinking behind Invention, why we made the decisions we did, and what we're going to do in the future, I think is probably a fair way of doing it. So who's on the sofa?
Mod Rowley, I made some of it.
You're the kind of Guardian's representative, aren't you?
Yeah, the spokesperson for the team,
Yeah.
Timbo, game balancer. I did balance a bit of Invention.
And I'm Mod Connor, senior producer on RuneScape.
Right. It seems I might commute it. I'm not going to do the dance this time, I'm afraid. Maybe you can pick me up on other things.
On the top.
There we go. Look at that. That's pro. That is pro. So, so if you didn't hear that before, it's all about Invention, obviously, and just kind of answering the questions you all have and not shirking from the hard questions, hopefully. And so do get them to us on hashtag #RSDevQA. So first of all, I want to address one of the big questions that is a new skill is all about rushing or getting to the 99s, getting to the 120s. We saw people hitting 99 within, I think it was 19 hours. Mm-hmm. So what's our stance on that? Is that what we wanted? What are we going to do about it?
There's no point working around it. That's not what we wanted. It's about the race. We'd have preferred it to take.
Race, right? It's great to race to it. We don't want to cheapen that.
Now the effort for them to get that 99 was monumental. Like the amount of stuff that had to go into it, what it did to the economy in itself is a little bit crazy. But it happened, and we need to figure out where we are, what does that mean for everyone, and just move forward.
So we've addressed it already. So that was largely using one particular item.
Yep, hand cannons and explosive components.
Yeah, that largely pushed them. They weren't exploiting. It was just a case of we hadn't looked at that item.
Yeah, we just
to that degree
misaddressed the amount of experience for how rare the component was.
So we knocked that down. So there was obviously a decision to be made. We could move these people down from 99, or we could keep it as is. So we made the decision to keep it as is.
Yeah, and we're going to move on. And admittedly, that does mean that it'll be more difficult for other people to follow the same path. Yeah. But, well, not trying to be flippant, but we kind of ran out of hand cannons anyway. So we needed different routes, and players are going to go through a different path to get there anyway.
The Invention is about discovery. They found it was about leaving it just blanket, like going into Invention and explore and find the best methods of training. That was actually a decided decision for Invention. Ultimately, they found something very, very lucrative.
Yeah.
But we balanced it up, and we feel that this is the best way, I think.
No, balance might be the wrong word. We did. There are things we need to address. Like, flat out, we need to make changes. We've done the cold fix. It's just recently, it's just gone live. And what we want to do with that is move, what's happening, change what's going on based on how players are using all of the content in game. Yeah. And make sure we're moving in the right direction. But what we don't want to do with something like that is go entirely the other direction.
Yeah.
So what we need to do is find the point where it works for everyone. And I think actually it might be a good chance for us to put this up screen. I just want to show where everything is at the moment. We'll come back to that one. I just want to show where everyone is in the skill.
Yeah.
So it's something that we had a look at. Now this is the level spread throughout the skill. And what we want players to be at this point in the skill is you're trying to break those 40s, 50s, 60s. And that's where we're actually seeing most of the players are. What we are seeing is that bigger spread up towards the end as people are just dumping huge amounts of currency into it. Yeah. So we're seeing spikes at 5. That's just after someone finished the tutorial, and it's a question of whether they continue with the skill right then or they come back to it. We always see that with our content. And then we have some milestone hits where you have 10, 20, 30, and 40. 40 being the first tech tree decision.
Yeah. I think one of the things with Invention, obviously it hurts to see people getting to 90 so quickly and some of the reaction to that and things like that. But we had always, our priority was the long term for Invention. Yep. Like the use of it, like the utility of it at the top end. The chase to 99 was always secondary. It's always going to feel like, people got there too quickly, but really it's about the health of the game. Mm-hmm. Sorry, just trying to talk about how our main goal is to make sure that it's Invention is actually for the long term.
Even though I interrupted everyone, we should put up the some of the points that we're after putting into the cold fix so everybody's aware of what we've done. This has gone live. This is live now. So you can see there, we're trying to push people, trying to encourage people to get more involved with using augmented gear.
It's safe to say this like you're saying,
Yeah.
this is just a first step, and we're looking at.
Need to make sure it's
more
going in the right
things that we
direction.
can do.
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly the intention was for disassembly to be one option, but there'll be an alternative, a slower but cheaper option to do level up my item.
Yeah.
And we really want to foster that behaviour.
Yep.
We want more people to do it. I think we haven't quite got that right on launch.
Yeah.
And so you'll see more updates pushing it towards that.
We want to make it, it needs to be that decision between kind of speed and value.
Yeah.
And the speed probably isn't there right now. And we're moving in that direction. We'll continue to make that better.
Yeah.
And what we need to do is see how that large proportion of players where they're sitting at that early, well, I say early, the first
Yeah.
40 to 60, to make sure that they're actually using the training methods that we expect them to use.
Yeah.
And to see that people are starting to do this alongside their Slayer and alongside the other things
Yeah.
they're trying to do.
I mean, one of the things that we've talked about is that it doesn't feel particularly rewarding in those lower levels. You're getting a lot of the best perks towards the end, and that's something that we really want to address. And it's again, maybe something we should have caught, hands up.
Yeah.
But the proportion of negative perks, the quality of the positive perks, particularly at the lower end, you're feeling it broaden out and get better towards the higher levels, and that's something we want to address.
We got to be honest here. Like even internally, we were looking at those perks, and it got better. But I think what kind of happened was we got slightly blinded by. This is going to be hard to hear. They were worse, so the perks weren't as beneficial as they were, and we moved some of the way.
Yeah.
And what
We're
can happen in
sensitive to the broader
development?
game.
Yeah,
I mean,
Yeah.
because these are layering on top of the armors that we already have, the weapons that we already have, that are already good at defeating some of the mobs that we have.
Yeah.
Layering on huge beneficial perks. I mean,
I
we're
mean,
dealing with this.
there's a problem with pushing tier 90s further than they already are.
Yeah.
A lot of the content in game, barring raids and very difficult encounters, there's no reason to go above level 90.
But that's what we're discussing now. We're
Yeah,
discussing
exactly.
were we too sensitive?
Yeah.
Did
Yeah.
we not push it as far enough as we could?
It's also another case that there is discovery here still. For instance, it's not widely known that your invention level can factor into the rank of perk that you get.
Yeah.
So higher ranks of the existing perks are more useful.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
even
this is all
still,
about the kind of the launch thing.
It's not immediately in front of you, exactly.
Yeah, they're going to be in the coming days. There are going to be people are going to find more ways and better ways of training that aren't revolving around disassembly. They are there. It's just people haven't really used them.
The other part is even within the perks, the way the system is set up is the different materials you use encourage you to get better, mean that you get better perks if you use the right combination of materials together. So even at the lower levels, you can get some better perks, and then they continue to get better as you move on. So if you learn your recipes and you understand the combinations of materials you use, you get better versions of the perks as you move along. And that's something that isn't immediately apparent, and you have to discover it. And it could be a case that if you're playing RuneScape, the concept of creating and rinsing and repeatedly crafting items is a very entrenched behavior. I mean, we do it for all of our crafting skills. What we've done with Invention is try to allow you to alter the recipe that you're building, but the inherent piece that comes out of that is that's not immediately clear if what you've gotten used to all the time is, well, I hit the button, and as long as I've got the recipes in my materials.
Repeat.
Yeah.
And so that's also something we probably didn't take enough of, pay enough attention to.
It's worth mentioning, but before we get onto your questions, we are going to do that. We're not just going to sit here chatting about the questions we want to answer, but is the kind of how quickly we're rattling through things. It's not as if we're now moving on to the next project.
No.
It's a case of, I mean, we've already had a fix out today. That kind of feeling is going to continue. We're going to look at more things tomorrow. We've got a plan, so next week.
We already
There's
had
an invention.
a launch planned for next week anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Some more stuff going in there.
Yep.
And of course, we keep on talking about the year of it. You know, the year is going to have an invention feel throughout. Raw, it's going to be invention oriented. You're going to start feeling those positive perks in particular.
Yeah.
In particular, yeah, for sure.
And especially after today, you're going to see those positive perks becoming things that we're really trying to get into content.
Yeah.
What you'll see throughout, so we have the fix today. Our main focus is we're going to be watching how that changes how people are playing the game and how people are training Invention. If it's going in the right direction, but it hasn't gone far enough, then we'll push a bit more tomorrow and we'll see what we can do with that. But once we have some data behind us to see what's happening, then we have the release coming up next week, which is more content coming out, including some cosmetics. And then we have another release coming within February. The goal is still February.
Yeah.
It's
for
in active development.
yeah,
Yep.
and that starts bringing in the skills and the tools.
Skilling.
Augmenting
Yeah.
tools, yeah.
Yeah.
So all these things are coming, and what we're trying to do with the whole skill is we're getting constant updates and improvements and releases. So we'll have some changes today, which you've seen, changes tomorrow, we'll see how they go, changes next week, more updates coming in February as we release new quests and other content. You'll see more devices starting to come in and more materials and more perks, and this is going to progress throughout the year. So what we've got right now is a big rush on what we're trying to get our hands on, or what players have got their hands on, and we'll bring that and expand it throughout the year.
Yeah. All right, so I really want to have some of your questions. So you've been, it's constantly populating on my iPad. You guys are talking so much. We've tried to get as many of these answered. But Evil Lusario, are you guys going to increase XP of augmenting weapons even further?
It is something I know me and Model Tears talked about.
Yeah,
It's monitoring what we've done
should
today,
be,
is it?
yeah. It should be that efficient, cheap, slow method of training Invention.
Yeah.
And one of the main methods of training Invention.
Yeah, which of course isn't going to seem very attractive to those who are rushing to 120
No,
to be
of
the
course.
first. But it's that long-term feel. It's
But everyone
it
else
still
is
needs
using...
to feel viable, right?
Exactly, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It still needs to feel like it's worthwhile. You're
Yeah.
not just literally dumping your entire gold pouch into Invention. There should be this way of...
Yeah.
And we are definitely looking at it. There was a change that went out today.
Yeah.
We're going to look at it even further.
I believe we were talking about it a lot about like the effect of siphoning, the effect of dismantling leveled up weapons, what that actually means, what's your return.
Yeah.
We have an initial bump.
Yep.
We'll see how that
Sure.
it comes down to making sure that we're making decisions based on data rather than immediately flipping.
These knee jerks,
Yeah.
suddenly it's nerfed as
So
a skill. And
I'll be honest, it is so hard not to do the knee jerk. Like
Yeah.
trying to make sure you're having a measured, reasoned reaction
Yeah.
it's difficult.
But knowing when to act quickly, which
Yeah.
of course is what we were doing with explosive perk.
Trying to find that
Yeah.
balance.
All right. So Honza, do you think you overbalance the perks? Feels like there's nothing worthwhile. So I'm seeing that sentiment a little bit. I read it.
Yes,
Yeah.
I guess. I mean,
It's tough to ask saying to a balancer, have we overbalanced it?
well, I mean, the problem with perks is they're on top of everything else.
Yeah.
On top of Void, on top of T90s, on top of
Yeah.
whatever
A
else
potential
released in the
future
game.
when gloves will be augmentable potentially.
Yeah.
Jewelry. All of these things could well have that tier. Leveling.
Yeah, and the different stacking effects of different perks.
Yeah. So
I
we're
mean,
thinking long term. That's why it is as it is.
It's a brand new reward space. We're going to get it right or wrong.
Yeah.
We got it mostly. We got it middling for the most part.
Yeah.
Towards sort of not being really well.
And I think a lot of it is the proportion of positive to negative.
Yeah.
A lot of it is that early game, which a lot of people, as we saw from the graph.
It's
slow
also
down.
the kind of the difference between the maintenance cost to the effect.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that we're looking at, the charge drain rates. Seeing
Yeah, I
like
think the
they're
charge drain
probably
rates
on
are-
the high side, and we
Yeah.
should do something about that.
So even
they're far higher than I thought they were.
Yeah.
So I think there's something's gone wrong there. But we're definitely looking at it.
Sure.
So it should be viable. Like it should be viable to have your perks on and everything working correctly, and your charge is going the right
Yeah.
way. Like
I mean, I
just-
saw some questions on the feed that was. I mean, we were talking about kind of these things that it was hard to anticipate. Could we have done a beta? Is that something we should have done?
we
or-
did discuss that at one point.
Yeah.
We don't get engagement on a beta, which is one of the big ones.
Definitely not at the rate where you would.
See a lot of people training all the way to 99 or 120.
And I'll be honest,
Unfortunately,
it's one of the issues that we have internally. Invention was always going to be directly related to how the economy works.
Yeah.
And without that live economy and that live supply of huge amounts of items, you don't get the same feeling. Part of the reason everything has gotten expensive is because everybody started rushing to the GE. If
Yeah.
we do a beta, you don't have a GE. You don't have that stack of items
Yeah,
that's
all
ready
those
to go.
structures attached.
So
Yeah.
we could have looked at it. We could have tried to push that a bit harder. There's also a lot of people looking for like the thrill of a new, like if you have a beta, everybody knows the path before we launch it.
And manipulation is a problem.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Exactly.
That's always a massive issue. So we tried to weigh it up, and
I think what we ended up with was we mobilised everyone in our team.
Yeah.
We got everybody playing Invention over a series of weeks.
Yep.
but the sample set,
months.
like
And
even
the sample
with,
again is just
it's just too small.
it's one of these kind of intractable problems. It's very difficult. We would obviously want to get better at that. All right, Timic, will stronger perks be released soon? Are we adding more perks
soon?
Well, so I think probably because we have the kind of hindsight now with where the perks are versus the cost.
Yeah.
When the ones we're working on for tools are probably the first ones that are going to come out that are going to have that kind of
Yeah.
benefit of
behind
hindsight.
it. Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. As for more perks and any kind of rebalancing we do on the perks, that's as and when.
That's it. And really, conversations have only just started today.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been in meetings today, and we've just brought you in on it.
Yeah.
That's how quickly we're working.
But I mean, we'll be probably discussing it this week.
Yeah.
Hopefully something out very soon.
But again,
Our
only
goal
just-
is to try and get something moving fast.
Yeah.
Okay, Jane Austen
Brilliant.
has come back from the dead. Isn't it a bit unfair to release a skill that allows rich people to get level over 100 in just one day? I mean, another thing that I wanted to mention was that Invention is almost beyond just the skill. I know this sounds a bit fluffy, but it tracks obviously it's tracking how far you've interacted with the skill, but there's so much of this meta system. You're playing around with perks, you're trying to find best things for your weapons. When you're at level 120, you've still got so much content to get through. You've got to be working your tech trees, working your armory, creating something for different situations. So we were focused on that, make sure there's enough play in there, not levels, play in there. I know that feels really fluffy and
We also, as you unlock
Potentials.
through the levels, while you get access to more materials and like your perks start stepping
Yeah.
up, the effect at 1 and 120 is fairly similar in what you're doing.
yeah,
I mean, you're getting better return out of it.
yeah.
Yeah, I have to go with that, but we wanted to be beneficial at all levels. So the race was purely about the race, like getting
Yeah.
to the end. And there are some benefits.
We knew
to
it was
that.
going to be short, that
Yeah.
they would be buying it, but we hoped it would be a level playing
I mean-
field, and I think that's where it's kind of come a little bit unstuck.
Yeah, it's a level playing field. I mean, it's essentially a pseudo viable skill.
Yeah.
If we release fletching, if we release fletching on Monday,
Yeah.
someone would have got 99 on that skill almost as quickly as Invention.
Exactly.
And
The important thing is that there are alternatives, and we put them in there for
Yeah.
those who don't want to buy it. It's just
exactly, we
spend
don't
more
want it to just be
long-term.
a viable skill. We want this
Yeah.
leveling weapons and disassembling them and that sort of
Yeah.
thing. But
And we'll get the focus on that, and we'll make sure that that's a viable, useful way to
Sure.
get involved.
Yeah. It's also worth noting that quite a few people are loving it. I've got to say. I mean, I've been talking to some people on Twitter. There are some people on Reddit saying how they're loving kind of manipulating their weapons, getting the extra use out of it, leveling their weapons. So,
Seeing some nice commentary about discovering things from themselves as well.
Yeah.
Finding all these hidden things.
that's it, exactly. Those question marks on the
Yeah,
scale
yeah,
advanced
yeah.
guide kind of feel. It's, that feeling of discovery is nice. And people working together, or that people are embracing the whole community gathering, trying to find the best
Yeah.
method. Some people hate that, some people love it. It's a bit, depends how you go about your skill. Do you just guide it and repeat?
And what we want to do is, if you are doing that kind of, we want to reward that, right?
Yeah.
If that's our goal with the skill, is for people to have that experience of, I'm trying to sit down, I'm trying to tailor my gizmo to suit my play style and apply that to my weapons and have my armory of weapons
Yeah.
and use them and level them up. What we need to do is make sure that that play style is being rewarded. And I don't want to cheapen just like rinsing gizmos,
yeah,
but if you choose to go that route, you're going for the high score tables, not the skill.
and you're going to pay a hell of a lot of money for it.
And you got to pay for it. And
Yeah.
it's tough. I mean, putting the effort in to get that high level, that was really tough. But we want to make sure that as a long-term thing, we're rewarding the people who are doing that discovery and manipulation.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure that we are working to give them what they need.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's go back to some more questions. Spiffy, why are weapons siphoning XP rates so low? Is there a method we players haven't found yet?
No,
Right.
we need to look. As we said earlier on,
It's just hitting that. We're going to...
We need to get the right. We need to get the right level. We need to get the right balance of.
Yeah. And you said that you thought it might be a mistake. Was that the siphoning?
That was the charge.
Gotcha. Sorry.
Divine charge.
back.
I think it's looking at all of the components. So how do I get the augmenter? How do I build the gizmos? How do I get the materials required for all those things?
Yeah.
How do I, how much XP am I getting out of leveling up my weapon? And how much do I get for siphoning and disassembling it? Like, do I siphon it and get my weapon back and do this again? Or am I done with this and I just
Yeah.
want to give the whole thing right now and I'll get another one? Because I've got another one in my inventory. Like, I don't think people don't feel like they need to make that decision right now, because like the siphoning doesn't feel like it's rewarding enough compared to the value you're putting in. Some of that's based on the inflated prices. Some of that's based on the XP coming back out just isn't what they need.
Yeah.
And we need to make sure we make that an easy decision.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, faux regard. If I augment my godsword, then run out of power, do just the gizmos shut off, or is the item completely unusable?
Okay, so I can probably field this one. Mechanical questions, I can do those.
We've got a few. I'm going to rattle off some.
So if you ever run out of power, your augmented weapon is considered to have level 1 stats.
Right.
And the perks do not work. But as soon as you put some power back on your charge pack, it will then switch back on, stats will be back.
So this is your
back as
invention
they are,
version of degrading.
Yeah.
Okay. And H311, can you dye an augmented weapon?
Not currently, no.
Yeah. That was something that fell off. I mean,
yeah, it was the permutations. Like I've got dyed stuff that I want to augment, and now I've got other people have augmented stuff that they then want to dye. We've got lots of loyalty points, things that were dyed as well. All these kind of little weapons kind of tucked away, lucky items as well, things like this. So what we're saying for this sort of thing is if there are things that you want to be able to augment, or if there are things you want to be able to do to augmented weapons, such as dyeing them, that's exactly what the Invention Forum is for.
Yeah.
Just post somewhere on there, we'll compile a list, this is being reviewed, monitored.
Yeah. I mean, that's worth noting. There is an Invention Forum out there. Please do go on there. That's where we're going to be communicating to you about the changes we're making daily.
And kind of the things we chose initially for augments were entirely based off of analytics of what players use the most.
Yeah.
So we haven't just randomly selected a bunch of stuff.
It is the case that we could have, I mean, there were so many things that we could have tweaked and added throughout all of these items. We could have launched, years in advance of what we have now.
Yes, yeah.
But we're looking at that kind of reacting and adding throughout the year.
Yeah, it's an ongoing thing through the year. Yeah.
All right. Uriel, to what degree will you involve Invention in dungeoneering? I mean, that's a good example. Is this kind of frill that isn't necessary for launch?
Yeah, so initially, we have a couple of devices that we're looking for players to be able to smuggle into dungeoneering.
So, Automapper was one we announced at RuneFest, I think.
Yeah, that was mentioned at RuneFest. There are some other ones, and those will just naturally come into the skill as we add them as rewards.
That's it, teams are grabbing them for the suitable content.
In terms of actually augmenting stuff within dungeoneering, I think that's a bigger question.
I did see a pitch at one point, I think. Mod Malta did come up with something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was big enough as it was, I think. we'll come back to that one.
It's one of these things that, it happened with summoning and dungeoneering, all of these, they didn't come with their partner quest, they didn't come with a lot of the frill content that is essential to the core of the skill. They just arrive afterwards. Cool. Indecisive. It's hard to get the materials for augmentation. The XP rates from augmented weapons are terrible. Shield bow decomposition is getting nerfed, so the only well-known viable training method will be making and destroying gizmos without actually using them. What were the intended training methods for this skill? This goes back to...
I think we've been over this.
Yeah, I think we kind of did that. Apologies, indecisive. I think go back to the... Rewind. What's the start? Furo. Damage increasing items. How do they affect dual wield weapons, given that we know you can't stack multiple perks?
Well, they don't. The highest rank of any perk you have currently equipped is the one that is counted. They do not stack.
Can you level both at the same time?
Yes. So, you can level the weapons that they're attached to and dismantle them. So, it's kind of a way to get another perk in, but you're better off putting another positive perk in that slot rather than the same perk at a different rank.
Yeah, so have two sets of perks, level up both weapons at the same time, get your XP out of two of them while doing the single skill.
Yeah.
Onyx Media, can we have it so that the perk that makes you always scold also removes aggression from all wilderness mobs?
It's an interesting one because that one was intended as a negative perk.
But people, obviously see it.
But it's a really
like a neutral perk.
It's a nice, good benefit to that perk.
Yeah, we saw that as a kind of an emergent one. Like some players are going to be really stoked about.
It reminds me of like GoldenEye and the
players.
N64, all these big head modes and things like that you just can't help but play and create because my head's bigger, so that makes the game more interesting.
Paintball mode.
But that's it. That said, if we are talking about generally reviewing perks, then there's no reason it couldn't be
that sort of thing would definitely be
exactly
positive.
I think we'll probably focus on those that we want to really kind of bring
I think what we do is we'd aim for the bigger impact things first to make sure that the positive perks that people are getting feel like they're positives.
Yeah.
And then we can look at things like, it'd be nice to add something like that. And so do we have time? Can we fit it in somewhere?
Sorry, I'm doing a question not from the iPad. What do you imagine Invention looks like by the end of the year? Because I think that's going to help kind of really communicate,
So personally, I see it at a place where players have multiples of different types of weapon. They have different perks on each of them, stacked. I would see various different armor and weapon, synergistic perks between your armors and weapons, so you understand your sets.
Yeah.
And then pick them up and run with them.
So if I disassemble something, create a perk, I will get a wider variety and diversity of perks, more proportionally positive.
Especially as like somebody who's in now.
Yeah.
More devices.
Yes.
More methods of training invention.
Maybe.
I mean, we talked about machines.
I'm trying to think what we're trying to do for the year, and while I think devices. Oh wait, we've got that second massive thing. So devices and perks, materials, components.
More slots, more tech trees.
Yeah, those will start going there. New ways of training, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't. We do have that space. Yeah.
I mean, we did talk a little bit in the Invention RuneFest about machinery.
Yeah.
About this idea of offline training.
Yeah.
Which is something relatively new. I mean, farming does it a little bit, which was always something we were talking about that was going to.
But I wouldn't expect a caches that was for divination is to invention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I won't expect that by the end of the year.
It seems more like a question we'd answer after we've attacked the
but it helps give people a vision of what we've got for Invention.
Sure.
I just wanted to kind of
lots more perks and more obvious specializations.
Yeah. Okay, so don't want to all talk about Invention all the way through. We are going to come back to it. Obviously, you've got more questions that you're putting on the iPad. One of the things I wanted to bring up is Rune Labs. Obviously, this is Guardian's project for the future. In fact, you're all Invention at the moment, all hands to the pump on Invention. But the Eastern Lands poll. Sorry, the Eastern Lands
poll. I thought we weren't going to go over Eastern Lands yet. It's not. Yeah, okay.
So what do you think about the poll result?
I haven't been thinking about it recently. Funnily enough.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, we're stoked about the project.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think that one of the things we want to iterate is like the number of upvotes. Not great at the moment on the Rune Labs criteria. I really like people to get in there. Like, get your hands dirty, go into Rune Labs, look at all of the ideas. These are for the kind of the main update in Eastern Lands.
What we're hoping for is a lot more thematic ideas. There are quite a few that are already on the first page, but there are a lot of things like just take this content and put it in the Eastern Lands.
Yeah, this is content I've been interested in. It might fit with Eastern Lands.
Yeah, we don't want to crowbar things in there. Just that people have wanted in the rest of the game. We want Eastern Lands content.
What can you do with archipelagos? What can you do with player-owned ports? What can you do with integration of player-owned ports to the main game? I mean, these are the kind of things that I'm really interested in. I quite like that players are talking about PvP in the Eastern Lands. Whether or not we can achieve that is a different matter, and we need to go over the ideas which we're doing tomorrow. Yeah,
I'm surprised that there hasn't been upvoted an actual ports update. Nobody said let's do a ports update.
Yeah.
I mean,
more like an opposite port in the Ark, where you go all around.
You're sending it out to Draenaville.
The Western Lands.
Someone else is sending you.
Yeah.
Well, you can go around Karamja and.
I think we'll poll some of these, and we might throw in a couple of curveball ideas, though.
But maybe a bit lower down, or maybe that we've thought of ourselves.
Yeah.
So we'd really like to see the numbers of upvotes going. Come on, let's keep Rune Labs going, and then we get interested in Eastern Lands because we're stoked. Obviously, once we've got beyond Invention, so back to Invention.
Let's do that.
Let's go
Invention. I think people want to hear about Invention.
So I'd like to bring up the changes again, if possible. So let's just kind of reiterate what we have done today. This gives you an idea of what changes we're kind of looking at daily. I mean, are there any more that you want to pick out?
The Augmenta cost reduction is a good one.
It's a massive one.
That's they're going to be a lot easier now to augment things, to be able to make augmenters. With the small change to the kind of XP that you get back from leveling gear, we can start to see how many more people go towards that method, and see where we take it from there. And it's like the things with the golden coal, the unstrung bows. Oh no, the unstrung bows actually, that's a good one. So the only issue there was it's not that they were OP. I mean, XP from disassembly is quite negligible anyway. It's not a huge contributing factor to leveling the skill. It's that their balancing them was based on their fletching level, which is typically higher than the wield requirement.
Always sits about 20 above anybody else.
One of those inherited issues from older skills.
Yeah.
So it's a slight reduction in XP, but we never saw those as a main training method anyway because it's disassembly.
Yeah. So a lot of people on the feed are mentioning the 25% as not being enough.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're looking at.
That's what we're saying.
Yeah, we want to watch what actually changes.
We want to sort of edge our way closer to getting to the right point.
And it might be a case. The big thing is we've made a change. We see the impact that has on training rates and kind of the return that people are getting from it. If that was too small of a nudge, then the next one, if it's very obviously not too small, next one we go heavier. If it wasn't, and if it's too much, then we're not too far off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, to give a bit of perspective, we're 24 hours almost after Invention launched.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're talking about kind of large-scale shifts to way of training. You know, we're watching things. We're not going to make knee-jerk reactions, as we've said a few times over. All right, more Invention questions. Lisa, have you started making a retro version of the skill cape yet?
Started and finished.
Started and finished?
Yeah.
So we were talking about the kind of skill cape colours. Can we say any more about
You
that?
have to bring up the colours, do you? It's
You don't have to talk about it.
so the
Because
retro
obviously
skill
people aren't there
cape
yet.
is one of the things. Can we say that we're putting out on Monday with a few of the other cosmetic
Yep.
additions. In terms of the colours, we're looking at what colour space there is because there are some really horrible colour combinations that we could do, but we
You wanna go
wanted to
garish?
reflect the colours of the skill within the cape.
Yeah.
There's some things we have to consider first before we do that, but we've got more pressing concerns,
Yeah,
I think,
yeah,
than
this
the
is it.
colours of the cape.
Yeah. Thirdly, a lot of items, 98%, often give simple parts and rarely give variable parts. Is this just a placeholder? And if not, why are we even allowed to break these things down when doing so is such a waste?
Yeah, they are just the miscellaneous table. That's the miscellaneous junk that we
Right,
thought
okay,
you
so
might...
it's almost like a drop table that's collected.
Yeah,
for a lot of things.
they're not the ones that have been given specific things.
Yeah.
They're
It
not
might be that we
categorised
pick
anything.
So I think-
Items to be off that table?
So I think there are 3
Case by
points
case?
here. Is like if there are case by case things that players think need addressing,
Yeah.
that's one for the
exactly.
Invention forum. Let
Yep.
us know. There is also research for junk chance reduction at later levels, which
Yep.
should help to improve some of these things. And it's part of the skill that is the discovery of finding things that are useful. Some things won't be useful.
Yeah.
That's going to be the case.
Yeah. Okay. Poe collector, as in, right, gotcha, I understand now. Are there any plans to change significantly certain aspects of the skill, like the recipe or materials quantity for certain devices or other items?
We've already done it with Augmenter.
Yeah, with the Augmenter, another change has been made. So the equipment siphon has been made cheaper as well, but that change is, we need to find a place to release that.
Yeah, we try and, I mean, it comes into the thing of trying to look at what the changes are doing and then make another, make an update.
Sure. Base tank, what uses are there from level 40 to 60 of the Goblin Tech tree?
This is something, so the devices that we're looking to release within February at least are going to help to fill out those tech trees a bit more.
Yeah. To make that choice more substantial.
Yeah, we wanted to get a few things on there just to show what tech trees are about. Actual devices for them, they're just going to be like the rest of the skill we're going to keep adding over the year.
Okay, all right. Judge Neo, the most useful item for training seems to be the siphon unlocked at level 27. Without it, it's hard and expensive to gain XP in Invention through combat. Why is it not unlocked earlier?
All right, so we already conveyed that it's going to be hopefully getting a cheaper cost.
Yep.
As for why it's unlocked there, I mean, there's something we can review, but it's meant to be aspirational. You're kind of meant to explore the different training methods.
It's important a skill has certain rungs at lower levels to get you up there.
It's something
It's not
to
only
aim
about
for.
80s and 90s.
Until then, you do have the ability to disassemble the entire weapon, or you can use the gizmo dissolvers or the equipment dissolvers, and then when you hit that level, then start making use of that.
So Zowski has asked, is batch 2, so it's quite obviously batch 2 is a difficult term for us because there's so many batches coming out, but just focused on beyond 99, or will it fill in the huge gaps in the 1 to 99 levels?
Fill in.
It's filling in
everything. So in previous skill releases, what we've done is big, massive batches of updates.
Yeah.
What you'll see with Invention is, like we're saying, there's another update coming out next week. There's another one coming in February. There are more additions being made to it as we release other pieces of content. So it'll continue to fill out more and more and more and more as you go through the year. And so in that way, yes, it'll be on 99. Also, yes, it'll fill out all the spaces, and it's going to happen continuously as you're playing through the game.
Yeah. Okay, and can there be a pouch to hold weapon and armor gizmos? That's from Slane.
Filled ones or empty ones?
Does not stipulate.
I'm going to guess it's filled.
Filled, probably.
Yeah.
Maybe?
What would you want filled, right?
Don't know how feasible that is.
It might be doable.
It's something we'd need to look into.
Yeah. All right. It's a good idea. We'll look into that. Okay, Blade Cyocled, Bicycled. Could the material screen be changed so that we can look at it whilst we're doing something else?
This came up even before we went live.
I mean, we did try to do this during development, I believe.
Yeah.
It's not as simple as you might think.
For horrible reasons, reasons
how
that I'm not
regular
happy with.
updates, or-
No, it's a way. So one of the things we do is if you ever engage with anything else, in order for you to not, or to interrupt you and make sure that your attention is ready for whatever happens. Examples would be like getting hit in combat.
Yeah.
Our interfaces are shut down. This isn't just for Invention. You'll notice this on most of your interfaces, and then you see the thing. I know every time you try and open anything or teleport or do whatever, you can't do this while in combat. Is the reason you can't look at this interface. Rebuilding it so that it stays open all the time is something we've been looking at.
What kind of a child interface is we?
Let's say we went
locked to the.
We may have gone in a slightly incorrect direction the first time we looked at this, but it's still functional. And in terms of everything that we wanted to do, it didn't rank up there as something to change straight away.
Yeah.
That's fair, right?
Yeah.
Do get in your questions to hashtag RSDevQA. Let's get some more from the Twitch feed onto the slate. When can I augment my mighty Slayer helm? Does the genocide perk stack with the Slayer helm?
So I'm not going to answer the first part of that because I mean the idea of augmenting helms is an idea we might do further down the road.
How many Slayer helms are there?
But a Slayer helm is already so great. It does stack. Genocidal does stack with the Slayer helm's effect though.
Yeah.
The helm's effect is applied first, then genocidal.
Right. Okay.
So
it's that order.
Care about that.
Yeah. But we've talked about it. So Modern Military is putting together a kind of roadmap for Invention. Like for devs who want to do some Invention stuff, these are the kind of things we're looking for. Kind of augmenting helmets, augmenting, gloves, jewelry is all things that he's talking about. It may well come. I'm sure this will be a great project for you in the future. How do we deal with this many perks?
Yep.
When you, Moto1989, when you train 8 XP from a weapon, does it destroy the gizmo?
Probably a good chance to explain dissolvers.
Yeah.
So we've got 3 items around this. So the first thing you can do with your level weapon is disassemble it. That's the way to get the most XP out of it.
Yep.
The second thing you can do is use a dissolver. So there's the equipment dissolver that will destroy the equipment and you'll keep the gizmo.
Yep.
The gizmo dissolver doing the opposite of that, just to get rid of a gizmo from a weapon. And then at the later level, the equipment siphon which lets you get a reduced amount of XP, but without destroying the weapon. It just sets it back to level 1.
And it's kind of obvious why we couldn't just give you everything back. You couldn't like bolt on or bolt off, as it were.
Yeah, if you have a high enough level weapon, you can sometimes get your gizmos back, or guarantee your gizmos back as well.
Yeah, item leveling, so the more levels you gain on the equipment, it unlocks more things that you can do, so guaranteeing getting the gizmo back, giving more materials back from the disassembly, things like this.
These are all perks, benefits of leveling that weapon or item. Uriel, even though Invention requires 80 plus divination, will you be able to use any energy to recharge your device's augmentations?
So this is the case. Modano added a nice thing to the MakeX interface, so when there are multiple materials that you can use, if you just hover over it, lists everything.
Great.
So all the energies are in there, and
so it may be that you just scanned the MakeX and thought, I need that specific energy, but really
roll over the energy.
But of course, the low level energies are not quite as good as the high level energies.
Yeah. Thalvli Frim, enhanced and strong parts seem to be heavily bottlenecking my progress. Was that intentional?
So that's one of the things that we've resolved with today's update. That was predominantly for the augmenter, and those components are
because we still
not needed for those.
And the big thing is we will be watching that. Like we'll be continuing to see what the change has made, or what differences the change has made.
Yeah. Eridin, how does the degrade mechanic work with augmented equipment? I think we've covered this a little. Do they remain augmented once fully degraded?
We covered that. So they become uncharged and level 1 stats.
Gotcha.
It is actually that it no longer degrades to dust. It degrades to
you don't lose it. You
1.
Keep it. It's just useless, effectively, as if it were broken.
Cool. Respa, so this is from Twitch. When will we be able to augment lower tier weapons for less combat-centered players?
So I suppose in this there's the lower tier combat, but if you're not a combat-centric player, you want to be doing skilling, right? Like if your focus has been on skilling, I mean, you've managed to get smithing and crafting up to 80 in Div.
Yeah.
So that's where we will be looking at getting those tool updates out within February.
Yeah. I think tier 70, we looked, it is tier 70, isn't it? We looked at that as a kind of a sweet spot. Yeah. That seemed like the right place for, welfare gear for people who have level 80.
Sort of entry level welfare gear.
Yeah, 80 smithing, divination and crafting. It seemed like the right spot. It's all about the elite skill. It's about focusing on the things that matter to the right people.
If somebody is looking to augment their lower level gear to start training combat, maybe that's something we look at, but it feels like that's a bit of a niche.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of case by case, because we looked at Void Knight. I mean, they're one of the bigger.
Void Gear,
Void Gear. as one of those ones that we talked a lot about as being sub 70, but people use and would want to use. So we made a decision on that. I mean, why did we come to the decision on that with Void?
We just wanted to plank it, so is anything under 70 just didn't.
Yeah, it's hard and fast rule. It's not complex. There are no exceptions.
Yeah. Because exception design is annoying.
Yeah, I think ideally we want to fill in the gaps 70 plus first anyway.
Yeah.
But I think, again, this is a great one for the Invention forums.
Okay.
Of course, the exception was flowers, and the reason is now obvious is that that's part of the tutorial.
Yeah. You needed to augment a weapon.
Yeah.
We can't give you Barrows items at level.
Asp has got a really good question about kind of the combat triangle. So thrown weapons, the fact that we cannot augment them means that ranged is the poor relation in the skill. Do you agree with that? Is there anything we're doing about it?
There is something in the plan. I mean, we were always intending to have thrown devices.
Yeah.
Because you can't.
So you're manufacturing something new,
creating something new.
Yeah.
We already have one instance of that being the mechanized chin chomper.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and there's the chakram for Crystal as well.
Yeah.
Crystal chakrams.
It's kind of
is a thrown weapon that you can augment and use.
But it's a case of, I mean, I know there are designs for more thrown weapons, that devices may well come in.
Yeah, I think we've got a plan to have one on each tech tree, so anyone who's chosen a specialisation isn't locked out of that.
Yeah. This is a really good question. It's 135. Which methods of training invention did you expect Iron Men to use?
This will be the leveling,
I mean, which is why we're drawing it up a bit as well. It's another reason
needs to be viable for Iron Men to train that way.
Yeah.
It'll be slower for them because they just can't get that many materials, but so they can't often augment their items. But
this is it. I mean, we couldn't make hard, big changes to the skill based solely for Iron Man.
Yep.
But there is that method. Rubik, could you try adding a material tab similar to how there's an emote tab or the ability tabs?
So first is just education. In case anyone hasn't realised, you can click on the little Invention disassembly thing, and it will open up the bag of materials interface. So if anyone didn't know about that, you can get all your
Can we make that
information
dockable?
there. Potentially, we can look into making that more easily obtained or stuck or something.
Or if we put it in, like,
screen,
if we could build it in as one of the tear and share interfaces, pop it out, put it in on top of my a tabbable interface with my inventory and allow me to swap between them.
Yeah, we can look into that.
Yeah.
Another useful thing from that is if there's a specific material you're looking for, the tooltips on that will tell you the sorts of items that will give you those materials.
Yeah. Fifth games, can we see quests dedicated or focused completely around invention? If so, when can we expect them? So, I mean, I guess this is one for me, isn't it? I mean,
do you want to do an invention quest?
Sure, let's do an invention quest.
Well, obviously we're at the point now where we're releasing quests like Rivers of Blood, which are hitting that 80 band. Now 80 and beyond, we're pushing the top end of skill requirements with quests. Invention kind of sits with that. What I wouldn't want to do is just go straight in there. Sliske's end game. We're going to throw a high invention requirement on it.
99 invention.
Crowbar in some invention theming.
You don't want to slap it on. You want to actually build something around the skill.
I want to build some story around the skill. Really kind of set the question to our teams of how can invention start bleeding into quest content. We've always talked about the godless and how they might feature in invention content. That's an avenue I haven't given up on. It's still quite cool. But the notion of a low invention requirement on non-Sliske's endgame content, I can see happening. Yeah.
It immediately puts the requirements into the high end of what we have in quests.
But if that's what we're already doing with the quest, we want to make it aspirational, we want to make it really kind of high-level storyline, then maybe it could happen. What else have we got? I've lost my place. Aglarian, can we rename items or have them be named after perks? Like my genocidal Nox Staff of Crackling. I like that. Pork Crackling?
Pork Crackling.
Wait, so is the question... Can I type in a name, like, can I call my sword Barry?
You're perfectly free to call it what you want.
Or do we generate the name based on the perks that exist on it?
So this is something we obviously researched way back. RuneScape is as old as it is. It's very, very difficult to do these sorts of things.
And there's also moderation of it as well.
Well, you don't have the moderation if we generate the name.
Yeah, sure.
And that's why it's a big question.
Yeah, I think that particular job has fallen by the wayside. There are more important things for us to address.
I'm sure there are lots of people who are watching this who can think of other things that we should be focusing on right now.
That's harsh.
Oh, sorry. No, I didn't mean it. I'd like to apologise to everyone here. Pogmathon09. Why isn't there more choices for explosive and corporeal materials? Or corporal? I think it's corporeal.
As in more sources for them?
More choices.
More sources, so more things that we can dismantle to get them.
That's it. So part of the problem was that it was solely hand cannons to get explosives. If there were more options.
Yeah, again, it's another for the forums, if you can think of more things that they should be on.
I've seen players talk about nitroglycerin barrels, rubium. I mean, yes, but they're also very easy to obtain and not tradable. Blah, blah,
and then you start getting into the real
locked
problems with creating the skill in the first place. I mean, it was such a labyrinthine job, making sure all these various avenues for things.
It is worth making, if you jump onto the forums, actually, can we throw a link to the forum page into the chat if anybody has ideas, so that we can, and then we'll let them, we'll go through that. He's being actively moderated at the moment to get those ideas.
At some point, will you release monsters that drop invention blueprints? That's from Von Struth.
I'm pretty sure we will.
Yeah.
At some point. Seems like a perfectly good unlockable thing for us to drop from monsters.
Anything like that.
Quests.
Would we want to lock things behind quests? And
possibly not perks.
Yeah.
Maybe. So these are the questions we're asking ourselves now for rewards from content down the line. And ideally, I think we want to get the existing materials that we have, more value for those first.
Yeah.
But we may well have new materials that drop and have a greater chance of giving existing materials. Sorry, new objects that drop. It's possible we would have perks that you can only get or only have utility within new content, or at certain levels or after certain unlocks. But I mean, these are the questions that the year is going to answer.
Yeah. Viver, since this skill is an elite skill that requires 18 crafting, smithing, and divination, how much will it enhance or affect gameplay for those who can use it and those who can't? For example, even at Divination 1, I could collect from divine locations, which was really nice.
Well, after you complete the tutorial, you can augment any weapon.
Yeah, I mean,
get virtually most perks.
Yeah.
You can get a lot of positive perks
There
from
was
level 4 or 5 at the end of the event.
There was a design where the unlocking or tiers of unlocking was based on something you could augment. So at level 120 of Invention, then you could do your dry gauze.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. We talked about kind of tiered unlocks for your weapons and armour, and that would have given it more of a traditional feel, but we felt that's not what players want.
Limited.
Players have got their items that they use all the time. Those are the ones they want to augment. They don't want to wait until level 120, just augment.
For the skills to be relevant at that level.
Yeah, so we moved away from that. There was a big decision we made early on in design. And that's what we're talking about when we're saying that front-loading a lot of the unlocks. Like everything is, a lot is unlocked right at the start of Invention. Because it could have been granular.
Like you have everything available to you, but you get better at it as you move through the skill.
Yeah. All right. Any possibility for creating custom augmentable gear from scratch to sell to other players in the future with unique appearances and colours? That's Victoria.
It's a possibility.
Yeah. It's going back to that kind of customisation argument of whether or not, we focus on other things, then we look on to kind of pure person.
Just one of the things, if we did do anything like that, it would only be player-to-player trades.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to, you wouldn't put it on the Grand Exchange.
Yeah. Can we have, when we'll be able to augment attuned crystal items?
Again, it's just one of those things that,
Yeah, it's going to come.
We reviewed
That's probably quite high up there.
the number of, the percentage of players who used certain items. So, I mean, they were quite a niche use, and we'll get to them at some point.
And the list of possible perks seems, can it be made more clear what we are likely to get from any kind of perk generation? I think this is kind of education again. That is in there.
Well, I mean, it's kind of...
Possibly in limited.
It's in there. I mean, you put your materials in your gizmo and it will tell you all the possible perks that could get you. And from that, you can start to build tables. And this is part of the intended discovery of the skill, is players figure this out for themselves.
Yeah.
But then we're going back to the kind of questions we have today, is whether or not that's the route we want.
Yeah.
Do we ever explain exactly how those materials choose the perks?
What do you mean, Lothing?
Oh, right. There are certain weightings.
Yeah,
so each material in.
Yeah, each material has a chance of giving you certain perks. Yeah. If you get multiple materials that have great chance of getting certain perks, the more of those different materials you put together, the more likely you are to get
and
that
also
perk.
the ranking increases.
And that's
what we mean by the recipes. So, like with the chances of each perk from each material, you start understanding, okay, well, if I pick these 3 different materials, they all are likely to give me this perk. If I put the 3 of them together, pretty likely, if not definitely, going to get that perk because it jumps to the top of something that's there. And that's how the recipes work. So rather than giving very bespoke, like the Make X recipes where you have to have like one of these and one of these and one of these, in this it's about finessing your different materials to better give you a chance to get the upgrade that you're looking for.
I mean, we could have revealed a lot of that, but it comes down to the kind of feeling of discovery.
We want people to discover it
at the start of launch. And also, I mean, we don't reveal drop tables because there is that kind of, we like people playing with
we want
exactly. They are drop tables.
Yeah.
If we told players how often things dropped all the time, there'd be no mystery to it.
Yeah.
It'd be like, Jagex, I've killed 10,000 of these things. Why haven't I got my drop? And things like that.
I mean,
well, there's a 10,000 chance every time.
Every time.
It should become evident fairly early on that, you know, the rarer components are going to give you the better chance of higher ranks of good perks. So I mean, the community is very quickly going to figure this out for themselves.
All right. Can we expect to see any content that merges construction and invention, adding useful upgrades to player-owned housing, or even just cosmetic customization for your home? Oh my!
Augment my house.
Augment my house.
I want my house to look like this.
So
Smart house.
one of the things we wanted was for the guild to effectively be, not a house, but have like degrees of customization.
Having customizable, extensible components to it. I mean, that's the guild project. Whenever we get to that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that we could do in the future. That comes along with machines, which obviously have to have location. The guild was always that location. Tech trees would be represented by going into those, the wings of the guild, maybe. Yeah. Hopefully I haven't spoiled anything there.
Oh, yeah, big red you're giving too much away.
Oh, damn it. I'll stop talking. Yeah. Hopefully nobody listened right then. Any plans on balancing out the recharge cost of augmenting weapons? I think we've covered that, haven't we?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it may be worth adding that's what analytics are looking into now.
Yeah. I mean, we're looking... our analytics team have been looking at what people are doing. I think, trying to recall stats off the top of my head. This is going to be tough. So we saw like a 70% increase in the number of trades on the GE. One in 3 people who were online yesterday trained Invention in some fashion.
Crazy. That's really good, considering the locks to it.
So in terms of our analytics team are looking at those stats, and now what they're doing is breaking into the detail of what are people actually doing. Like, did they engage is one thing. What did they actually do when they engage is the next question.
Yeah.
As we dig deeper into that, we get a better idea of how to balance for the future.
Cool. Does it matter what position the perks are in that kind of that grid?
Oh, it depends, really. If we want to keep a bit of mystery, or if we want to just be...
You've got the beard, you can kind of twiddle it, as you say.
I would do that.
Oh, okay.
Do we want to answer that?
If you want to keep it a mystery, keep it a mystery.
Just say it
That's
kind
fine.
of matters.
Kind of.
Yeah, it kind of matters.
Okay, all right. A couple of last questions before we move on. Why are the debuffs so severe in comparison to the buffs? I think that's a broader one that we've largely covered.
I think this ties into what we're looking at. We want to make augmenting and using augmented weapons to be more viable. That's something that you're going to see change fairly rapidly over the next, the coming days and weeks.
Yeah.
So expect changes in that particular question.
What else should I pull out?
Did we grab? Have we been loading up with questions from the?
I may have been filthy there. I do apologise. Okay, so there we go. I've got no more questions to answer that I have here. Obviously, you're going to have more. Put them on the forums. Go to the Invention forums. The team are avidly looking over those.
Wait.
There is a good question.
We got a
There
good
is a good question. We're stopping the press, literally stopping the press to get a question out.
Oh, I couldn't read it. What was it?
Is this the one that's just gone on from Killian L?
Yeah.
Okay, Killian L. Question from Mod Osborne. Are the gods ever going to be involved with Invention in one way or another? It's going to get me singing.
This is... Okay.
Go on.
No, I don't know.
You know.
Yeah.
It was literally directed at you.
It was, quite literally. The intention, the story thematic intention of Invention was that this is what is making mortals capable of going up against gods. This is secret that mortality has that they can use and weaponize themselves against gods who are obviously so much more powerful. And that was always the theme of the godless that we're talking about, bringing them into Invention. I can see that happening again. I would like this to be this kind of secret that the player just kind of keeps to themselves. But stories would explore that space.
Yeah.
Maybe we go in different directions. That's the joy of it. Through Rune Labs polls, through individual developers' ideas. So what I say is going to happen often invariably isn't. So, I mean, what would you like to do with Invention in terms of story?
No, I mean, I was only going to say I didn't think that was a stop the presses question. It's a nice question, but it's
out of all of the questions that happened.
There we go. So
there's another question coming in.
There we go. Nice stop the press.
Do we have another one?
Another one, yeah.
Okay.
I'm just grabbing them from the chat, so there's no sort of preferential here.
Okay, so we are just grabbing from the chat. You guys are. This is real time. This is the show that we haven't pre-recorded.
Yeah.
When
we like
do we
doing
have
this
time to
occasionally.
Yeah, ask the question. We're really running out of time. We'll try and grab as many as we can. Right?
Goomba1156. When can we expect factory machines to appear?
Not in the first 6 months of the year.
That's a good answer.
I think that's about as far as I can go. We are looking at it, but I don't see it happening in the first 6 months of the year.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, sorry.
But we like the idea.
Yeah.
It's still on the table.
The other thing is that a lot of what happens in those first 6 months will inform exactly how that's structured.
Yeah.
Like today, and us trying to respond to what's happening and making sure that we're making the changes.
Yeah.
Those changes, what you'll see is rapid, spread, coming in with content updates, and then we can go in with something else that really understands what we want. Whenever we build content, so we create something, we release it, and then the players will immediately, like every member of the player base, will take it in a way that we didn't expect, and each one of them has their own unique way in what they look at it. What we do then is, as we see it go live, we bring that information back in, and then we tailor the future content to match that. So what you'll see is our idea for what we expected with those devices are one thing now. It's probably going to be different in a month.
Yeah. I mean, we've got more locked in the first 6 months. We talked about it in live stream.
Yeah, also we've got quite a lot of stuff to do.
Exactly. So it's good. As a player, I would want Jagex to say, look, we're going to look at how the first 6 months have gone and then change things accordingly.
Yeah.
If people are saying, wait a minute, there's a lot of PVM content going on here, then obviously we'd adjust. So we're reacting to things. There's been a slew of stuff here.
Boom.
Should we do a kind of rapid fire?
Yep.
Let's go for it. Are you going to add an Invention daily similar to Dungeoneering daily, XP-wise? That's from Mod Robin, who I think might work for us.
Daily challenges, is it?
Daily challenges probably, well, we'll have to review it. We intentionally haven't done yet.
Yeah. This is part of the elite skill thing, why there's no bonus XP as well.
It also wouldn't be as OP as Dungeoneering challenges.
What about D&Ds?
Also,
Future possibility.
Future possibility.
Future.
keep going.
Will the skill become profitable?
It already is profitable if you're selling stuff to people who are disassembling it.
So inadvertently, the skill is profitable for someone.
Fletching has got very popular.
That's true.
Okay.
So there are a few things you can sell as well. So charge packs, the divine charges, you can sell those.
And we're planning on making more devices in the year. So.
Yeah, which may well be tradable.
Yeah.
Can you add a search bar in the components list?
Can we
Add a search function in the components list? Yeah, possibly.
I'll do a calc.
Do you plan for breakdown to give more uncommon items so that we don't have to break down so much stuff?
Under a review.
Something to look at.
I think that definitely comes in with the balancing. I think we have some very key things to go after first.
Yeah.
Like we're looking at augmenters, we're looking at siphoning, we're looking at perk effectiveness. Like they're three big things that we're really focusing on. Then we're going to start looking at where the materials are coming from and make sure that's kind of spread in the right way.
Okay. Mod Shawnee will be trying to get the best and worst perks in the community stream tonight from 9 p.m. So please do tune in. And there are more. I just want to completely reiterate: there are more updates upcoming for Invention. So do provide feedback and stay positive. Let's get some constructive feedback.
I just want to catch one thing because I think it's worth mentioning. It's come up a bit, and it's just gone off the screen. It's gone up a bit. So it's why didn't you do this in QA? Which I think is going to be. It's come up a good few times. By King Jut. So I feel it's worth addressing this. One of the things that changes when you release a piece of content this big is its interaction and involvement with how the economy and the player base react. Are there things that we could have caught? Yes. There are things that we probably missed and we should have caught, and I'm definitely holding hands up and saying should have tried to find those. But there are other parts that we just couldn't expect based on how people use the use the stockpiles of content that's available to them, understanding how the values shift and how much available gold could just be poured in to adjust what's going on. And that's what we see as one of the reasons that it's very difficult for us to do something like this in QA.
And the other one, big one, is will there be a rollback? I mean, as mentioned several times, the answer is no.
No rollback.
There we go. All right. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Appreciate all of your feedback. Keep it coming on the forums, and we'll see you next week. And obviously, stick around for Mod Shawnee tonight from 9 PM. All right. Cheers.